One Speed MMA podcast with yours truly, Justin Flying Smitty Smith and Karson One Speed Wood. It's a beautiful Sunday here in just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. The sun is shining. The snow is finally clearing up off of the ground.
Dogs are barking incessantly.
Both yours and the neighbor dog.
Yep, both neighbor dogs.
Maybe they're in heat.
Could be.
Because they haven't been fixed yet.
Khabib.
Speaking of Khabib, fighting Ferguson.
Yeah, buddy.
What is that? About a month from now?
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into the future, let's talk about the past a little bit. You can't, if you don't learn the past, you're doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Except unless you're Anderson Silva.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently he thought it was a Nick Diaz situation and he had done enough to win the fight. However, how did you have that fight scored?
3-2, Bisping.
3-2 Bisping. And going into the fifth, I asked you if you thought it was 2-2 going into that fifth round. So it's very interesting.
I think that any round that Silva decided to have a higher output of punches than Bisping, or even just a high output of punches, he won each of the rounds. I think it was 3-5, right? Yeah.
There's been a lot of controversial fights like that, though, lately, where a lot of people say it could have gone either way, and then they jump on, whoever their favorite fighter was. I think Bisping won 1-2. I think 3 could have been. I think, like they said, if you have to go, if it's a 10-point scoring system, then that one is pretty even. I would have scored it even.
What do you mean even?
I would have given it. Obviously, you can't do 9-9. There's a 10-point must, and you can't go 10-10. But I think if there was one round in that entire fight that Bisping looked good at the beginning and then Silva finished strong and it could have been an actual tie round, I think that one would have been it.
Which one?
3.
3.
And 3's when the knee was thrown that knocked out Bisping.
Well, it's hard because I understand like people's frustration. You look at Bisping's face; it's hard to say, "Oh yeah, well, how could you say that he won if he looks like that?" But I mean, the thing is that it is scored on a round by round basis. It's not scored on an overall. If you looked at it and you said who won the fight, like if you didn't have judges judging each round and you're just like who won the fight, fine, Silva. But the fact of the matter is really not one of them controlled the octagon more than the other. Bisping maybe controlled it a little bit more, but really that was back and forth. Both of them shared time up against the fence, even if it was Silva backing himself up against the fence. I mean, that's part of the scoring. Literally no takedowns, right? Never even an attempt. He tried one, and it's like you're not going to get that on Silva.
Bisping was really smart to try that attempt because he couldn't take any more punches in the face. The hardest part about this,
but he's going to get in the clinch. If he would have stayed there, he's going to get in the clinch and he's going to get kneed.
Yeah. Where was Silva's freaking corner to tell him that he needed to either do more or finish that fight? Like, this is, to me, reminiscent
How are you ever going to tell him that? Like, he's never going to listen.
But you would hope.
People have been criticizing him since the one Maia fight and then the 2 Weidman fights. He doesn't change. He's not going to change. He's out there to have fun, play his game.
And
he's better than anybody in his corner.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, the very first fight on this card, the Timur fight, where Timur actually won, he went back after the first round to his corner, and they said, quit in a round. Go finish this. You're better than this guy. Timur. He's the one that threw the left uppercut and knocked out his opponent. Beautiful, and he was owning it. Svensson, the guy from The Ultimate Fighter that was supposed to win, that guy couldn't close the distance, couldn't take him down. His striking wasn't good enough, and Timur just picked him apart and then knocked him out. But going back real quick.
It's different, though, than if you're in that guy's corner as opposed to Anderson Silva.
Yeah. Yes. To a degree, but you're still, as a corner, supposed to get him to win that fight and tell him what he needs to do to win. This fight was reminiscent of one of our favorite fights of Frankie Edgar, Ben Henderson. When Frankie Edgar seemed to be somewhat controlling the fight, Ben Henderson did an up kick, nailed Frankie Edgar right in the face, and just destroyed his face.
Broke his nose, yeah. Right in that one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the worst up kicks I've ever seen. And even though the fight was probably just as even as this Anderson Silva Michael Bisping fight, because Frankie Edgar looked so bad. I mean, he just looked destroyed. it was hard to not give that fight to Ben Henderson, even though I thought Frankie Edgar had won that fight. But visibly, Frankie Edgar looked awful. And it's the same thing with Bisping, where a lot of people are like, look at his face. It was that one knee. If that knee never would have landed, Bisping wouldn't have looked that bad.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's not the first time that it's happened. Because that's the thing is like when you were saying he clipped him again yesterday, and I was like, I don't think he did because he was pulling more Ali. That's what I tweeted out yesterday, that I felt it was more reminiscent of Ali Frazier 1, where Frazier goes to the hospital and his life's being threatened, and Ali's saying that he's never going to fight again if Frazier dies, but Frazier won the fight. And you look at Ali's face, he barely even had scuffs on it because like he's always on the outside of the punches, but then he's so accurate. Mm-hmm. But Frazier ended up winning. And I feel like it's the same kind of thing where technically like Bisping had more control of the fight, landed more punches.
He knocked him down twice. Mm-hmm. Round 1 and round 2 at the end, he knocked him down.
Mm-hmm. And so like I just, on a round by round basis, I don't see how anybody really I mean, Silva for whole parts of the match, and Bisping actually brought it up during his post-fight interview that he had. He said, I wasn't going to engage him. His whole thing is being countering fighters. So if he can't counter, he's not typically going to do so well. So there was a lot of stalemating, which is fine. Like I thought that it was an exciting fight.
It's 5 rounds. There's going to be stalemates in a 5-round fight.
Well, and you know that Bisping has amazing cardio. So, I mean, and Silva's 40 years old coming off of a long layoff, right? I mean, he did have the Nick Diaz fight, but then even after that, he was off for a pretty long time. So
they look like they could have gone another 2 rounds.
They look good.
Physically, Bisping couldn't have taken another 2 rounds. If he had one good hit, he would have probably been done.
He actually, and that's the thing is
their cardio was incredible.
It's interesting because Anderson did look a little off the mark, like we were talking about. He always just ducked to the left. It was like left, and so like. He used to, like every once in a while you'd see a dodge like his old self where he would be bobbing and weaving all over the place and using capoeira, but then but he just seemed a little bit slower. But at the same time, even with that, look how good that he did, and look at Bisping, even as him a 40-year-old shade of himself.
The 2 things that kept annoying me was the Anderson Silva haymakers, where he kept dropping to the left, like you just mentioned, and throwing the right that never landed. Not one time did it ever come close. And the reverse elbow that at one time in Pride worked really well for him, and it looked...
Not Pride, Cage Rage.
Oh, Cage Rage. Thank you. And
16.
It looked impressive, and if he would have landed, it would have ended the fight, but it never landed, and he kept throwing it. And it is what it is. He can do whatever he wants. They're the ones in there fighting and trying to dictate the fight, but I feel like there were things that were working a lot better than those 2, that one elbow and that one overhand right. And he just kept going for him. And every time he dropped left to throw that overhand right, Bisping saw it coming, got out of the way, and then usually when he popped back up, he would catch him with a couple jabs. So,
he also flinched a lot. Did it not seem like that to you? Like he was wincing and flinching when
Bisping
punches were coming in? Silva.
I don't think he understood why he was getting hit. As weird as that sounds, like I don't think he could. I think he thought he was still faster than he was, and every time he got hit, he didn't think that it should have caught him.
It's just weird seeing somebody stand in the pocket and even like weaving in and out of the pocket. He seemed a little bit more. And again, like this sounds like a criticism because I mean I still think after last night's fight, I still want to see him fight. Mm-hmm. I was worried that he was going to come out and look sluggish. He was going to look slow. And he did a little bit, but the accuracy is still there. Like, and the athleticism still there. He was throwing flying knees. He was throwing back elbows, the reverse elbow that he had to. The talent, I mean, it's not where it was obviously 3-4 years ago, but he can still fight. I'll still pay to watch him fight.
I don't think he beats top 3. I don't think he beats Weidman or Rockhold. I think if they put Bisping and him up against each other again, I think he could beat Bisping. However, I think that this fight meant everything to Bisping. And I mean, he even said that afterwards, like this fight meant everything to me. He said multiple times, I have to win this fight. I think I'm going to win, which was really weird to say I think instead of I'm going to win this fight. Like I gained a lot of respect for Bisping after this fight. Like it was super interesting when he was sitting there next to, Mousasi and Amir Khani during the post-fight conference. And he was like, you know what? every one of these people that's up here right now is cut from the same cloth. The fact that we're sitting up here and the fact that, we have the heart to get in there and fight, like, my favorite by far was the guy that said, hey, your UFC game's coming out. If you guys had a finishing move, did you see that? Mm-mm. So the journalist stands up and is like, I just got one question. With the UFC 2 game coming out, if you guys had a finishing move, what would it be? And Michael Bisping goes, for God's sake, we just got in the fight and put our lives on the line. We don't care about a video game. And then he just sat back and he goes, and he sits back forward and goes, with all due respect. But all of the fighters were like, yeah, that's about how we feel. Like, thanks, Bisping. Because he just was like, what the hell kind of question is that? Like, it's a video game. His face is all bloodied up. He's like, our lives were just legitimately on the line. And
yeah, but who was he with? I mean, fine, I get it. Like, your life was on the line, but, like, how's that any different than you just put your life on the line? Who's next for you?
No, I understand. I just thought it was a funny thing for him to be like, it's a video game.
Well, it's a video game that you get image rights for and you get money for, so.
No, yeah. No, one, it's a big deal, and they're sponsoring, and there's definitely a lot of licensed dollars that are going to be passed around. But just real quick, let's go through this fight. Most impressive, most disappointing is actually what I'm going to go through. Maybe we should actually make that a segment. Most impressive, most disappointing. The first two fights, Timur, his last name's Timur, and the other guy's name was Temu, Teemu. Mm-hmm. Two E's. Anyway, both of them finished fights really quick. The one guy looked reminiscent of Ian McCall with his mustache. Timur finished in the second round. Svensson, coming from the Ultimate Fighter, came in looking really confident. Couldn't take him down. Couldn't really do much, and ended up getting finished with a left uppercut, which was just beautiful. The Pakalen fight ended up getting a fight bonus. That one lasted all of 35 seconds. I believe it was a body kick. No, I'm getting it confused with the Dempsey.
Dude.
But he got him. He clipped him. Saw that he was injured, ran in, and just finished the fight really quick, and then ended up getting choking him out at the end, but it was really KO. He just finished it like that. The other one that was impressive but not as impressive was the Askam-Dempsey fight. Askam lost his first fight in the UFC. Dempsey, I think, has dropped his last 3, so he's most likely gone. But there was an amazing body kick that set up a head kick, and just right in a row, body kick, saw that he dropped his hands, head kick, and just dropped him. And it was really good. It's actually on our Twitter account. 3, 4. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of disappointing fights on this. Grant Vera by far is the number one disappointing one. We watched that. That's the one where Vera got a point deduction, which we talked about on our last podcast, and it's on our YouTube.
We're killing it.
We're killing it.
We're just on point.
And that was the one he kept grabbing inside, I believe, inside of his own glove and inside of his opponent's glove.
I don't even know why you'd want to be in there. You ever had a cast on? Of course you have.
I've had
Those things are the
on.
worst. Yeah, you've had a lot. I've only ever had one. The worst thing ever was being inside that cast.
The thing that annoyed me the most about this is watching the first episodes of The Ultimate Fighter Latin America, which Vera is on, season 1. He seemed like a class act. Like, he seemed like Ecuadorian, like, humble kid. And then watching him in this fight, you just wanted to, like, grab him by his shoulders and shake him and be like, stop doing what you're doing. Just knock it off. He kept grabbing the cage. He kept putting his freaking...
They had to bring a translator in.
Yeah.
Because, I think that he probably understood, but...
Well, he acted like he didn't understand, and then the ref said, turn around. And then when he said turn around, he turned right around. And it's like... Ugh. And like we talked about in the point deduction, there was a Brazilian fighter that just continually ignoring the judge, and he finally got a point taken away. And so it is what it is, and heads up to actually take a point away from him. Pickett, Rivera, super sketchy decision. Rivera won that fight. Pickett got the decision. They told the hometown judges. Breeze, who was supposed to come in and just...
Who were the judges? Is there actually commissions in London?
I would believe so, but honestly, I don't know 100%.
Because they have most of their own judges. No, Herb Dean was there. So did the UFC?
That wasn't a judge. That would be a referee.
No, I know, but the commission brings both of them. Unless the UFC does outside events, then they bring their own.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm wondering. That's a good question.
I think the last time they brought their own, I think, was in an Asian country, and that's when Dana White actually came down and like booted one of the judges. But I know Brazil's got their own commission. I think most of the UK's got their own commission. I mean, think about how big boxing is in the UK. They've got to have their own commission. Tyson Fury is from the UK, is he not? Who's the current heavyweight champion or lightweight champion? Plus the movie Creed, that champion is also British, so I'm sure that they've got their own. And so with that, there was a couple questionable ones. Go ahead. You see it?
No, you're good.
Park versus Kabalov was really boring, which is sad because both of these guys are exciting fighters. Ended up being a wrestling match, which you kind of expect a little bit. But once again, getting back to Breeze versus Nakamura, this one also could have gone either way. Nakamura put up a much better fight than anyone expected. They expected Breeze to just go run through him, and Nakamura actually got to a decision. Showed really good scramming skills and ground skills. I was impressed with Breeze being a British fighter. Obviously, he's a tri-star with GSP and Roy McDonald and those guys, so his wrestling obviously has to be improving. But he didn't do terrible. I mean, it wasn't an Anthony Johnson, Dan Hardy, where Dan Hardy just ended up on his back the entire time. Like, he won the grappling match. You know what I mean?
He won?
Breeze.
On the ground?
Yeah. He ended up on top.
We're going to rewatch that fight. That's not how I remembered it.
He ended up on top that's how he won. Is at the end of 2 and 3, he was on top.
I have to rewatch. From what I remember, he got taken down quite a bit and couldn't really get up.
No, he ended up on top most of it. I think that's the only reason he won, is because he ended up on top at the end of the round. Musasi's kind of a dick after this fight.
Yeah.
Like, telling Latest he was a super big drop in competition, that he's top 5, that he wants a better known fighter. And Latest is I would put them on equal playing fields of how well people know each one of them.
Mm-hmm. I'd say Musasi, the people know, well, I don't know.
It depends on how old they are, because people that have been watching for 10 years would be like, oh yeah, Latest actually fought against Anderson Silva.
Mm-hmm.
New people would remember Musasi, but they've been around for about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's not like he just acts like he was so much better. The weird part is the Americani guy, who's usually super humble and like super respectful, seemed really arrogant as well. So it was kind of bizarre to see these guys that seem like they're usually pretty nice dudes be really arrogant and kind of pissy. And who knows? Maybe something happened that we didn't see, but it was definitely kind of interesting to see it. And of course, Silva Bisping, which we already kind of went over. So
there's a lot of weird things we haven't talked about in that. The knee, the mouth guard, jumping on the cage being opened, and people let back in with the fight not being over.
Dana White saying that he thought Anderson Silva won.
Yeah, that was weird. And we were both happy because we were both bummed that the fight was being ended right there, because I thought it was pretty clear that the mouth guard was and I don't fault Silva for it. I kind of do. I kind of agree with Michael Bisping where I fault Dean in that instance a little bit. I feel like at the same time, though, it's your job to keep your mouth guard in, and it's your job to intelligently defend yourself. If Silva's walking you down, don't point at it and start moving towards your mouth guard. Like Herb's got it in his hand. Like,
you've got 10 seconds in the round left.
And I mean,
they just hit the little thing. Just defend yourself for 10 seconds.
Yeah, because he opened himself wide, like right up just for the. It was a nice knee too. It was so flush. Oh, it was beautiful.
It was a beautiful knee. It shows you how anyone else in real life would have fared against Anderson Silva. If your hands were down, you didn't really know, you weren't really expecting it, and then kablam.
You're up against something.
Yeah, you're on the ground. And he was out. I mean, the end of the fourth. So let's get back to it. You have to intelligently defend yourself. He was waiting for a break. Herb Dean actually put out his hand, and every angle they show it from now shows the knee better than it just shows Herb Dean. And I think a lot of people don't realize that Herb Dean actually put out his hand, and I'm about 100% sure he said time. And that's why Bisping dropped his hands, because he watched him do it and then started walking to the middle like they were going to be separated. And he got creamed. And so I don't fault Silva at all. I think he knows. I think he knew a little bit more about what was going on than he lets on. I think he threw that knee intentionally. knowing that Bisping was not going to be defending himself. However, you got to defend yourself, and I think Michael Bisping was out. I think he was knocked out. He couldn't remember what round he was in at the end of the fourth. His face was all busted up. It took halfway through the fourth round for him to look like he was actually back in the fight. And then fifth round, he looked like he did enough just to not lose.
But I feel like he won the fifth. I feel like he lost the fifth, but he still won the fourth.
I think he won the fourth because Anderson didn't push, and I don't know why Anderson didn't push.
Mm-hmm.
Because he looked like Chris Lieben in there. Like there's a couple times where it looked like he just
Rich Franklin.
Yeah, he looked like Rich Franklin. And that was a comment that I made. This could very easily turn into a Rich Franklin fight where he just gets put in the tie clinch and just kneed in the face or body for 3 minutes.
So I guess I didn't ask you. How did you score it? Were you 3-2 as well?
I would like to watch it again. I had 2-2 going into the fifth, which would have made me give the fifth round.
You had 2-2 going into the fifth. And you have Silva winning.
I would have had Silva winning.
Wow. Which round?
However, in my head, I was like, I think Bisping's got this. So I obviously my scoring and my heart were in two different places.
We actually did you see the
because round 3, because of the knee, I think won that for Silva.
I put a poll out. Did you see the poll?
I did not.
Everybody, I asked who you thought won the fight and like how. Most people, I think it was just a slight edge, 3-2 Silva.
Yeah.
I put a 4-1 Bisping up, which actually did have quite a few. Other was like 6%, but then it was like 48%, 44% for most people thought that Silva won at 3-2.
And that's what I had it. I had it 2-2, and then he won the fifth. And to be honest, I'm glad Bisping won. If I could have had it anyway, I would have given it to Bisping based on him getting kneed when he technically shouldn't have, even though he should have defended himself. And this is one of those arguments that goes back and forth.
It's not that he shouldn't have. I mean,
shouldn't have got kneed or should have defended himself. He should have got kneed, but he should have also defended himself. But Bisping, any fighter knows when someone's pointing at a ref and putting his hands down, there's a pretty good sign that that fight's about to be stopped. Not stopped, but separated.
I don't put any fault on Silva on that at all. And neither did Bisping.
No, and you can't. But it just seemed a little. It seemed a little tricky. It seemed a little manipulative.
I feel like once he saw the mouth guard go down, he went after it, like from the onset.
Well, because you could tell Bisping didn't want to fight, and I guess that's true too. Bisping said he didn't want to lose any teeth. But I guess that's true.
Which is a pretty funny comment.
From a break?
He's like, contrary to popular belief, us Brits aren't known for our good teeth. Mine are pretty good. I want to keep them. One thing that I was super impressed with on the fight, which actually is not fight related at all, and I also tweeted about this, I think that if Joe Rogan's contract is up by the end of August and he doesn't renew, I would really like to see Dan Hardy doing interviews.
But would you like to see Dan Hardy, Mike Goldberg?
Yeah. I mean, let's see it. I mean, are you going to get rid of Goldberg? I mean, who else? Would you rather John Anik and Goldberg?
Yeah, no. But Goldberg's just been there for so long.
Yeah, like
just kind of.
He's almost endearing. It's just like that guy. You know,
I bet you Joe Rogan signs back on.
I don't think he's going to.
But I think he signs on for half the events.
I don't think he's going to.
Or a third of the events.
I don't think he's going to. I think he's done. He's over the Reebok deal. And more in his podcast, he keeps talking more and more about the problems with the UFC and stuff like that. He's getting pretty liberal with it. And it's just these little slight comments here and there. And he said that he's like, I don't know if I'm going to redo it. I don't agree with the Reebok deal. And he's got so much stuff that he's doing anyways.
You think he pushes the fighters union? You think he takes on the mantle and pushes for it?
I don't think he does anything. I think he leaves. He continues to be a fan of the sport. Probably does Fight Companion with Schaub and Brian Callen.
That's a good point. Schaub hates the UFC, and him and Joe Rogan are good. They are really, really good friends.
Well, that's who all does the
Fight Companion.
Eddie Brav and Brian Callen, Brandon Schaub, and then Joe Rogan all do the Fight Companion, and I could see him doing that on Zcast.
Oh, he makes plenty of money.
Oh yeah, no, I know it's not that, but I mean, like as far as staying in the UFC, it's not about making money. It's more about like how's he going to be how's he going to be linked with fighting going forward. I think that's how. I think he's going to continue doing Fight Companion because he's never going to leave it. But his true passion is stand-up comedy. Anyways, back to the.
How do you think his relationship is with Dana White?
I think it's great.
You think? Because he's definitely sides with a lot of people that have a huge issue with the UFC. He sides. He hangs out. He spends. His
Dana
time
White isn't the UFC, and he also.
But to a point, he is. Because Dana White's the one that's instituting a lot of the issues that people don't enjoy.
He's the one that takes the brunt of it. How much is it? It's Fertitta Brothers.
Well, they're the ones that actually run the business, and they're I mean, I have such a love-hate relationship with Dana White because anytime he speaks, I really like him because he's like, you know what? I think Silva won that fight. The judges were off. And even before that, and then there's things like the Reebok deal and other things that I'm like, Dana, or like looking for a fight when you watch some of the things he does and you're like, eh.
The Alaska one that I saw was really good. That's the only one that I've watched.
Except they didn't sign anyone.
So there wasn't anybody to be signed.
And apparently the kid that they signed in the next one, the heavyweight kid, is known for sexual abuse and abuse of an adolescent and all kinds of weird stuff. So there's I think it's Bloody Elbow that's actually like more or less publishing it so they can get the word out so this kid doesn't actually get traction in the UFC.
I mean, I hope that it's founded if they're doing that.
Well,
I don't because I don't want people to get molested. But like,
no, it was,
I hope they're not just ruining somebody's life with doing half-assed TMZ reporting.
And then, no, these were like police reports. But these are like, I mean, you got to remember, Chris Liebman's been in and out of jail, but for different things, drug use. But this kid actually had there was a story of him sexually assaulting a 17-year-old that her story was that he blocked her in the room.
Then don't fight. But don't be in the UFC.
But this kid was like 6'4", 250 in high school, like just an athlete. Honestly, reading it reminded me of Angel.
Fine, no, actually, let him fight, sign him to a super low deal, and just immediately Cain Velasquez.
Just have someone trash him.
Just Cain Velasquez right off the bat.
Yeah, man, it's interesting.
Sorry,
we can move on from that.
No, I just wanted to. Going back to this, I wanted to get your take on it. Would you be interested in seeing Dan Hardy doing the interviews?
Yeah, I love Dan Hardy.
It's not that I don't like John Anik. I think he's all right, but he is like essentially like Goldberg. Like to have both of them on, it wouldn't be very interesting to me.
He's the color commentary, not the fight, not the fight commentary. And I think Dan Hardy does great. I think Dan Hardy gets caught up in the fights more than.
Anik?
No. Joe Rogan. Sorry. I think Dan Hardy gets caught up in the fights because I think he's very interested more so. So there were several times in this fight card that he just stopped talking because he was legitimately just watching the fight. I think he forgot he was supposed to be like commentating. But his fight interviews, I think he does really well. The one difference I think between him and Joe Rogan is I think Dan Hardy would always be somewhat nice or kind, where sometimes Joe Rogan will go in there and kind of not be a dick, but ask a little bit more difficult questions about things, if that makes any sense.
Which is, I mean, Anik's not going to ask any hard questions. No. Anyways, it's like I'm comparing him to what we have. Yeah. I mean, they could bring somebody else completely in, like me.
Shell. Like us.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it would be terrible. I'd be so awful.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson would be great. I'd be so awful in the moment. You did good there. Why?
I just don't think we know enough about techniques.
No.
To do in the moment, fight by fight, move by move commentary.
Well, no, but literally, like in the moment, I literally be like, you did good. Why?
Yeah. You won. What do you think happened?
Look at Banner, Mikey.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. The MMA community, I could do an entire podcast on the MMA community. Maybe when we launch our website, when we finally are ready to do it, I'll do an actual in-depth write-up on the MMA community because it kind of drives me nuts. But yeah, I think Joe Rogan, if he's done, he's so active in everything that he does. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't start representing the fighters and actually pushing for a union or something else.
I don't see that happening. He's almost 50. I just feel like he'll step away. He always does taekwondo and jit still, and he's friends with Eddie Bravo. And I see him keeping an eye on the everything that's going on with it, on big fights, doing the fight companions, and just continues doing comedy.
He doesn't need it. He's making plenty of money. You know what I mean? He can walk away and not have to worry about it. So let's talk UFC 196.
Yes! Oh, I'm so excited! Oh, my goodness.
So outside of the main event, what are you most
Nothing.
excited for?
Holly Holmes
Miesha Tate?
and Miesha Tate.
What about Tom Lawler?
Nope. Don't really care.
Filthy Tom Lawler. Dude, that dude's been around since, like, I think he was on Tough 2 or 3. Man, that dude, Tom Lawler's been around forever. He's a big fan favorite, which I never realized. Like, I always liked him, even though he's a back-and-forth fighter, win-loss, like win-loss. But he's a huge fan favorite, but he's also just weird as hell.
I actually like the Thatch fight. I really like Thatch.
I like
so I guess the prelim headliner, I'm really excited for that. I mean, I'm excited for this card as much as I guess. Oh my gosh, is Diego Sanchez on
Jim Miller
the Fight Pass prelims for Jim Miller? Oh my god!
Let's get into Fight Pass real quick. So they've got their new CEO of Fight Pass or whatever, or head of Fight Pass. He's actually making sure that they have at least one decent card on Fight Pass to try and actually get some traction. They did lose quite a bit of traction when some of the streams went down this weekend. Ours didn't for more than a couple minutes, and it was during the Breeze fight, which wasn't very good.
They were doing that more as mercy.
Yeah, they're like, you don't want to watch this.
We're sorry.
But Sanchez Miller, that's the fight that nobody asked for, and if it was a fight 5 years ago, would have been awesome.
Oh, I like it.
Well,
if we remember, Jim Miller's daughter was sick at the time when I think a couple years ago, and I'm sure she's not completely healthy yet. Give that guy some money. I like Diego Sanchez. I know that
he's crazy.
I'm okay with that. I like a certain amount of crazy in my fighter.
I thought Jim Miller was going to hold the belt 4 years ago when he was in his prime. I thought Jim Miller was going to go win the belt.
When he was doing the Robbie Lawler thing where he was kind of having his resurgence.
Yep.
And, yeah, I did too, actually. But that division's murderer's row, man. It's so hard to look at Diego Sanchez in the picture.
He's got this weird, like, Muppet face.
He's right next to a photo of, let's see who this is. This looks like...
Is it Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, it looks like Mortal Kombat. That's Jason.
Yeah.
He's crazier than Jason.
He looks a little nutty. Good old Jim Miller.
I love him, though. I really do. Like, I'm not saying that, like, tongue-in-cheek is about Diego Sanchez. Like, I legitimately like the guy.
That dude is just crazy.
Which is fine. I have no problem with that.
Chaz Skelly versus Darren Elkins. Look at that picture, man. Talk about just looking odd as can be.
They both do.
Yeah.
For, like... Chaz Skelly, he looks like they didn't quite zoom in on him enough.
Yeah.
And Darren Elkins, it looks like they surprised him.
Yeah. Darren, look over here. Snap. Like you got TMZ reported.
Huh?
Yeah. Holy cow, man. And then Thiago Silva is always a good time. Nordine Taleb, I don't know a ton about him from France.
I really like Eric Silva.
Yeah. Eric Silva is one of those guys that should have a better record and be doing better than he is. I mean, he's had some really impressive fights, and even when he loses, they were pretty impressive performances. I don't think he's ever just got starched.
He's good on the ground, too.
Yeah. Well, he's Brazilian. Let's hope he's good on the ground. And then Brandon Thatch, who looks like he's way too skinny in his picture, and kind of the same story. Sayer looking super frumpy.
And what's the filter that they have on that?
The gray
sepia. They got sepia going on. Did somebody take this on Instagram?
They obviously don't have colored photos in Afghanistan yet.
Jeez.
It's in black and white, other than the green head rush shorts. Interesting that they actually have the head rush. So I'm guessing he hasn't fought since the Reebok deal if they don't have a picture with him in Reebok shorts.
Yeah, that seems kind of weird. Did they drop him and pick him back up?
No, I don't think he's ever been dropped. I just think he's been out for a while. I think he's back and forth too, but I don't think Thatch has any problem with him.
I really like Thatch. I thought he was going to win, and I thought he was winning the Ben Henderson fight until he got caught.
Yep.
In that submission.
I think that they are putting him back against.
Sayer has a bigger reach than Thatch, man.
Yeah, based on these pictures, he looks like he's a lot smaller. 76 now, and Thatch has got a long reach.
Yeah.
So, we'll definitely see, but I think Thatch has got this. Apparently, Sayer has no legs.
I love those.
So, it's a running joke on Reddit. If you ever want to see them talk trash, they always talk trash about how these fighters have no legs. But yeah, it shows you how long it's been since he's fought, due to the fact that they don't have.
They have the Hayabusa shorts on, or that head rush.
Yep, and they don't have
both.
an accurate leg reach. Latifi,
Maybe he never throws kicks, so they just think it's a moot point. You're not going to throw kicks. We're not going to say you have a reach on it.
Yeah. So number 13 versus number 14, Latifi. Honestly, I think, look, this is one of those dudes that looks like Yoel Romero. If there's somebody that looks like they're going to get pinged for skipping leg day, I think Latifi's definitely one of those dudes. I've never necessarily been that impressed with his fighting. So this could go either way. I would 64 to 50% KO rate. I'm guessing that this one will probably go to decision, because that's how these usually work out. If one dude usually knocks a ton of other people out, they usually just goes to decision because they don't want to stand and bang. But I was also very wrong with the Derek Brunson fight, because I thought it was going to go to decision, and that ended in about a minute 30. So this card, all known names, nothing that really is super important in the UFC, meaning none of these fights, all of the people that should win will probably win. Anderson Lawler will definitely be interesting. That could go either way. But they don't really progress any of these guys in the divisions that they're in, other than maybe Sanchez Miller, putting them up in the top.
That's not true. I mean, it's always about how you win. It's always obviously, if he comes out, for example, if Volante comes out and just waxes Latifi, you have to look at him differently. There's been tons of times where you've come out and completely dominated somebody, and they're like, nah, this guy looks like he's now turned a corner and he's a real deal.
They're 13 and 14, so depending on what happens and how it shakes out, they could end up in the top 10 of their division. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely an exciting fight. They're not going to put it where it is without it, thinking it's going to lead right into the co-main. Holly Holm, Miesha Tate. Who you got?
Holly Holm.
I think if anyone has any chance of beating Holly Holm, it's Miesha Tate. I think Miesha Tate is outside of Holly Holm, is the most rounded female fighter. She's got to not attack. She can't pull a Kat Zingano and just go full speed. Which she might. Yeah, she'll go one speed. Because what ended up happening is Kat Zingano weathered that storm and then ended up beating her in the long run. And so I don't know if she can necessarily do that. Her picture is definitely menacing.
Misha's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She looks like she is just angry as can be. But I like Miesha Tate.
I feel like Miesha takes too much damage in fights, and she's really good at coming back. That's her thing, and she has heart. She's got heart for days. But I don't think Holly Holm will land enough that it'll put Miesha away, in my opinion.
And the thing is you can't just rush in there against Holly Holm being a boxer unless she rushes in there and takes her down. And Miesha Tate could, however, she's got to close the distance in order to take her down. And I think it's going to be really hard to get within Holly Holm striking to actually take her down. Mm. We saw that Ronda Rousey couldn't even. I mean, taking that back, Ronda Rousey tried to throw her twice, and Holly Holm did fine with it.
And then I actually ended up taking her down. Uh-huh. She has a good base.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at her. Look who she's training with at Winklejohn. I mean, could you imagine trying to defend hip tosses from... Yeah, could you imagine trying to defend hip tosses from John Jones? And you know that I
doubt she's fighting John Jones.
Not fighting.
Or even rolling.
But why not grapple? Why not roll with those dudes? If they're the best there is, they're not going to hurt her. But if you can defend a hip toss from someone and I'm not, obviously, he's not going to full on flip her over. But if you can defend a hip toss from John Jones, you can definitely defend a hip toss from Ronda Rousey. You know what I mean?
I don't know, because, I mean, his tosses are super good.
Miesha Tate rolls with the guys at her gym. They talk about it. I don't think and I think they spar with the guys at the gym, just not, obviously, the guys going full speed. But, they have to. There's not enough women fighters at each gym to spar with high class. Yeah.
But the thing is that Holly's usually bringing in boxing instructors and stuff like that. The thing is I think, I feel like Winklejohn is... He is the level of coach that Greg Popovich, Bill Belichick, they're doing different things before anybody else is thinking of them, and they're doing them really well right off the bat. They're not the first ones to pioneer it, but then also half-assing it. They do a really good job of it. I think they come in with a good game plan against Miesha Tate, and I think it might actually go to decision. I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to be some back and forth, but I doubt that Misha will even win a round.
I could see her getting picked apart from the outside for long enough. Misha Tate,
but I'm really excited for this fight. Like
I am too.
I did not want to see her fight Ronda that quickly, or I didn't want Ronda to fight her that quickly. I think I've made that very clear on the podcast. I'm really excited for this fight.
McGregor Diaz.
McGregor.
First round?
No.
I think. Did you see the newest Vine that they've got with Diaz? Where they're like, how do you think the fight's going to go? He's like, I'm going to throw some punches, I'm going to avoid some punches, and go home with a pocket full of cash.
Did you see the after interview with him and Nick and Nate?
Where they're walking to the car?
No, they're not walking to their car. They're just sitting in like,
it
looks like a
where he points to the reporter
room
and goes, "You're on steroids," and then gets a big old grin on his face.
See, that's what I imagine they're like in the gym, where they're just kind of like silly. And because that's the thing, you hear anybody from their camp, they really like, they smoke weed. They grew up in Stockton, it's whatever. But like, from what I understand, they're not terrible guys.
Did you ever hear my brother Sean's story about his buddy that ran into Nick Diaz?
Mm-mm.
So I think he was selling solar or security or something and knocked on Nick Diaz's house. Didn't know who Nick Diaz was.
Should go to the door. Probably gonna get beat up.
Quit knocking on my house. My door's right there. So anyway, knocks on his door. Thanks, Karson. Knocks on his door. Nick Diaz invites him in. He's like, cool, man. I'm probably not going to buy anything, but you want something to drink or whatever. Apparently, they just shoot the shit for a little bit. He leaves. Come to find out later on that it's Nick Diaz, the ex, UFC fighter at that time, just getting back in. And he said he was kind of menacing when he first met him. He said, but he was the nicest dude. He said they just had casual conversation. He had no idea who he was or that he was famous or anything like that, and went on his way and didn't find out until later. He said he was the nicest guy.
Well, that's the thing, is it's like, it was kind of like we were talking about yesterday. I don't necessarily think that they're acts that people put on, but they're personalities that happen when put in certain situations. I think Chell's was an act. Chell's like, I'm going to act like this. And I'm not thinking that Conor necessarily has an act or that the Diaz brothers have an act. I just think if they're put in certain situations, they behave a certain way.
Yeah, no, so I agree. I think one of the most interesting things as well, not on this, but on McGregor, McGregor's got a Twitter Vine or video where I don't know where he's at. He might be on vacation or they might be in Vegas, but there's a apartment complex and someone's got a Irish flag and a cutout of him in their window, and he looks over, they're filming him, he goes, that's a cutout of me in that window. We've got to go knock on this guy's door. And I think he parks, and I don't know what happens, but it legitimately looks like he's just going to get out of his car, go up to that person's apartment and knock on their door and like meet them because they have his cardboard cutout in their window. And I mean, that's something I would do if I was a certain amount of famous. Like, hey man, that's really cool. I saw this and here I am now at your front door. Like, that blows my mind. Just blows my. Not only that, it didn't look like it was the safest neighborhood, so they might have to just be worried about just knocking on someone's random door.
He probably couldn't care less. Like after he was like the whole Brazil thing, he was walking around in Brazil by himself.
Well, and there's parts of Dublin that probably aren't the safest,
but I mean that's where he grew up.
When you're living off $186 a month, you're probably not living in the safest place. I was paying $550, and we lived by a freaking crack dealer. So,
well,
so
they make money.
So with that, I've got McGregor as well. The
presser, who won the presser? McGregor by a country mile. It was beautiful though.
He crushed his. The presser was pretty good. I expected a little bit more.
That's what everybody was saying. Diaz. I thought it was perfect. I don't know what you expect from the Diaz brothers. More than exactly how he always acted.
You're on steroids.
What did you expect? What did you expect from him?
You're on steroids.
What did you expect?
No, Karson, you're on steroids.
I am. I'm not denying it. I'm not in the UFC.
Everybody's
I have no
steroids.
I have no reason to deny it.
Not me or Nick, but everyone else.
What about the people in your gym? Yeah. Everyone is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't.
What did you expect? That's what I want to know.
I expect the next one to be better. I expect that him flying down the next day after signing all the contracts and him getting into it, I expect from here on out for it to be pretty good.
What did you expect? I just want to know, like, what you would expect from a Diaz brother press conference where they're being attacked.
Honestly, I expected him to do more talking. He didn't do a ton of talking. There's a lot of times he just didn't pick up the mic and he just made a face. I expected him. That's what I expected. I expected more talking.
Well, because once he like blows his load of all the F words that he can, saying that just F you, F you, F you, F you. What else is he going to say after that? Especially when you're asking him, your two buddies in your gym are on steroids. Did you not know?
Yeah.
And he just sits there like...
Yeah. He makes a face like, oh, good point. Yeah.
You got to say something. That looks so bad
And then he just says you're on
Jake
steroids.
Shields.
Yeah. But I've always been the guy that says that you can't use steroids in a gym without everyone else in the gym knowing that you're on steroids. Like, but we also had
Senator, I'm not on steroids. Have you ever seen the Cat Williams bit where he's talking? I was just watching it last night. It's so funny. Senator, I was not on steroids. I got bigger and stronger the older I got. Talking about Jose Canseco, I think.
Oh my goodness.
So
Who
funny.
then ended up being a gag of fighting random people. So let's get into the real discussion because we're running short on time here. I would like to get more into
I'm excited. I'm excited for that fight though. I'm more excited than that than RDA.
Excited. Oh yeah. Yeah. I
It
think
means
the
nothing, but-
Yeah, I think the RDA fight would have been more competitive, but it is what it is. UFC 200. Would you like to get into your stuff first, or would you like me to get into my weird random things?
So some criteria that we had. We're coming up with who we want to see. That's I think pretty fair. We want to see who we want to see at UFC 200.
So let's.
Well, the criteria that we're going off of is I think there has to be 2 title fights, and this is going off of 100 again. And then also, if you notice, they had Asia represented, they had South America represented, Brazil, they had Canada, they had the U.S., and they had Europe. So we had to pretty much fill those roles.
So then I changed mine a little bit. So here's the other thing that we looked at. We looked at the cards of people that are already booked. We'll just read these real quick. Rockhold, Weidman, Verdum, Stipe, Joanna, the 125 women's champion, DJ, Demetrius
Say
Johnson.
your last name.
I don't even know.
Chechik.
That's it. And I don't even know who she's fighting, which I feel bad for. But they're on the Ultimate Fighter together.
Claudia Gledha.
Yeah.
Gledha. I don't know how to pronounce that in Brazilian. Portuguese.
Jones, Cormier, DJ, Cejudo, Reem, Arlovsky, Belfort, Jacare, Maya, and Brown. Those people are all most likely off the table, unless Jones starches Cormier, and we'll get into that. He most likely will make it. So our criteria is anyone that has at least 3 months after their fight, if they don't get too injured, to be potentially put on the 200 card. We know that the UFC wants the 200 card to be as big as humanly possible, and as far as I understand, they want it to beat the numbers for UFC 100, which was Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir and GSP versus who did GSP fight on that card? It wasn't BJ Penn.
No.
Anyway, Thiago Alves.
Yep.
And those 2 fights, along with John Jones being on the undercard, those 2 fights were the highest selling pay-per-view in UFC history. And Dana White wants UFC 200 to take its place as the highest selling. So I'll get into, okay, so I'm going to read this and then we're going to get into your picks. These are the names that are not currently booked on any card that could potentially fight. So we've got, starting at the lighter weights, Aldo, Edgar, Mendez, Holloway, McCall, Sterling, Cruz, Faber, Dillashaw, Barao, Rory McDonald, Stephen Thompson, Tyrone Woodley, Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz, Tim Kennedy, Alexander Gustafsson, and Glover Teixeira. Most of those are lighter. A lot of the light heavyweights and heavyweights are all booked. Cain Velasquez is also not booked, and for some random reason, I don't have him on this list. So,
You want mine?
Yeah, let's get yours because mine are a little bit more out there.
So my only problem is I have the main event Bones Jones Rumble Johnson, but that's pretty much not going to happen because there's not 3 months. It's too quick of a turnaround time.
Unless he gets no suspension, which is slim to none.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Anyways, I'll give you the rest of it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I had Bones Jones Rumble, Conor McGregor RDA, Rory McDonald, Stephen Thompson, Dong Kyun Kim.
Little bit slower.
Conor McGregor RDA.
Okay, you just rattling these off real quick.
We have a lot of time. Rory McDonald, Stephen Thompson.
What represents Canada?
Yes.
Rory McDonald.
Dong Kyun Kim,
Korea.
Tyrone Woodley,
The South.
Ferguson.
Yeah, solid point.
Travis Brown, Cain Velasquez. Undercard main event, Holloway Aldo.
Undercard main event. For the belt or not for the belt?
Not for the belt.
Okay. And those...
Conor hasn't vacated yet. I don't know if he's going to by UFC 200.
And then really you could throw almost any of these other people. You could do Sterling, Dillashaw. You could put Faber, Dillashaw. You could put...
Let's say that Lawler does fight him. I also do. If that's the case, if it's Lawler McGregor for 170.
Hey, hold on. I will get into that when I get to my pick.
That's yours. I'm just saying because I don't know if Bones Jones Rumble Johnson.
You're killing my thunder.
Shh. I don't know if Bones Jones Rumble's gonna happen, so I had to rethink it. Calm down.
People are going to turn off the podcast.
Calm down,
now.
sir.
They don't have a reason to listen any longer.
We didn't even know that was your pick until just now.
Then why'd you say rolling your eyes? They'll see that on the iPhone over there.
Give me... Damn it. I don't even know who my main event is. Mine's dumb.
Lawler.
So then...
Lawler Woodley.
RDA, Khabib.
Yeah. So here's...
No, because I want Ferguson to win. Ferguson. RDA Ferguson.
Okay, so here are my picks. That's actually a super solid card. You did a little bit better than me getting someone from each country represented, which makes a ton of sense.
I also wanted women represented, though, but there's nothing compelling that I think they can make by 200.
So let me get into my list, then I'll explain why, and then we'll get into, say, Holly Holm to see if she can make it. Paige Van Zant's definitely going to be on the undercard. Anyway, so here's what I think is going to happen. I think if McGregor starches...
Is it what we thought was going to happen or what we wanted to?
No, this is what I legitimately think is going to happen.
Oh, mine was more what I wanted to see happen because I don't think that... Anyways, go on.
Okay, and then, we can discuss. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think McGregor beats Nick Diaz within the first round. I think because he's fighting at 170 and they already think he can... They already were discussing putting him against Lawler, that they put Lawler versus McGregor for the 170 belt at UFC 200. I think either Aldo versus Edgar for the 145 or RDA versus Khabib Ferguson's winner, but I think it's going to be Khabib, also fight on that card. So that's at least 2 title fights. If not, actually putting 3 title fights on there. Both Aldo and Frankie Edgar should be not injured by then. If not that, then they put Cruz versus Faber or Faber versus Dillashaw for 135.
It'll be Cruz Faber.
Yeah. Obviously, we know 199 still needs to be filled in. They'll probably get one more title fight on that as well. Then I think Velasquez, Brown are on there because we picked Brown because there's no one really else in the heavyweight division that's not wrapped up with the next couple months.
I said Roy Nelson, Big Country.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen. Then I think
he's a draw, man.
If Holm crushes Misha Tate, which I don't believe is going to happen, they could also put her on this card, and that represents the women. Joanna probably won't make it because she fights at the Ultimate Fighter.
Who are they going to put Holly against, though?
I don't know, but I'm just saying.
There's nothing compelling.
But it's a woman. It's a woman's MMA fight that they can get on there to represent the women.
The whole thing, it's not representing women. The whole thing is a draw. They want people that draw.
So, I think
Holly doesn't draw right now.
Paige Van Zant is on the card. I think Sage Northcutt's on the undercard. I think Aljamain Sterling's on it. Here are undercard fights that I think would work on this. You hold your horses. Lineker versus Garbrandt. Uriah Hall versus Derek Brunson. Cerrone versus somebody else at 170. Eddie Alvarez, potentially. And then if McGregor doesn't fight Lawler, he can fight RDA or whoever else. But I think those fights on an undercard sell because they already have a story behind them based on right now.
I don't think that you're going to get Sterling, Paige Van Zant, and
No,
Northcutt.
I don't think I don't think they'll have to be on the same one. But I think Paige Van Zandt, no matter what's on 200. Sage Northcutt, maybe not. Aljamain Sterling, he just signed. He seems healthy. He might fight even before 200.
Yeah, he's going to want to fight before. I think actually Northcutt, Sage would be on it before Paige would.
No, man. Paige Van Zandt hasn't fought since Thug Rose, where she got crushed.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's ready and rearing to go, and I think a lot of people really like her.
I do too, but I don't think she's going to be 200. I think she'll go before that.
No, I don't. I think Dana White will save her for 200.
Well, how do you like being wrong? Because you're wrong, sir.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
She's not going to be on 200
in 2 months when this whole card is there, and McGregor's fighting Lawler.
We'll know. We'll even know before then.
And RDA's fighting Khabib.
They'll announce something very quick with Conor.
If Conor starts it, well, they have to wait for the medical suspensions. But if there's no medical suspension after 196, Conor's fighting at 170.
No.
Yes.
People want him dead. I don't know if they're fans of him or they want him dead. It seems to me they want him dead.
It takes 6 weeks. So it takes 6
You told me yesterday that he's one of the only 170s. Lawler's one of the only 170s that he could beat, but then also that Cerrone would have beat him.
I think Cerrone would have beat him.
That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make an ounce of sense.
Why not?
You think that Lawler has a good chance to beat Lawler, but not Cerrone?
If you listen to any fight breakdown from any fighter, which I do,
they're wrong.
They're in agreement that one of the only people's fight styles that Conor McGregor could use against them would be Robbie Lawler's. Because Robbie Lawler's a straight brawler, and technique against a brawler is going to help you win by taking those shots and picking your shots. Just like Aldo. Aldo went right at him like a brawler, which is not how Aldo fights, and he clipped him. And because Conor McGregor would be the faster, smaller, more technical fighter than Lawler, he could potentially take Lawler. He could. I don't think he could take Stephen Thompson based on technique that both of them have, plus size. I don't think he takes Roy McDonald because technique that both of them have, plus size. Tyrone Woodley, if he gets in, he takes him down. He's way too big for McGregor to get off of him. You know what I mean? I don't think he beats Lawler, but Lawler's his best chance of winning at 170. And I think win or lose, he sells so many tickets at 200. He makes millions upon millions, comes out, points at freaking Money Mayweather and says, look how much money I have, and retires. Because he says he wants 2 belts, he wants a ton of money, and he's done.
No.
Why not?
He doesn't have enough money yet.
Oh.
And he won't at 200 either.
He could.
He won't.
If he spends it correctly. And if he gets a job with gets a job with UFC.
No, he wants money.
Yeah, he does want money.
He wants money.
He wants money.
He said 2016 is going to be his year.
It's so great.
All of them are his year.
So you think he waits and fights RDA instead at 200?
Yeah.
I don't know medically where RDA is, but if for a broken bone, it usually takes 6 weeks before you can start training again. 6 weeks obviously is about a month and a half. Yeah. So he should be fine in that amount of time.
Well, he's not having surgery, right?
No.
He'll be fine.
And so I'm sorry, I was doing the math in my head as I was thinking about it. So,
plus it's just a bruise.
I think your card. I think your card makes more sense other than the John Jones.
I know. It's again. I was going off of what I really want, and that's what I want. But I mean,
because you are representing each country, and Dong Young Kim hasn't fought in a while, and neither is the Korean Zombie.
Korean Zombie's on his. That's the thing, is I was looking so hard to make the Korean Zombie work in this, but he's doing his 2 years military service.
I forgot that they did that.
Yeah, and he's done in October of this year.
That makes so much more sense why he's gone.
Yeah, I was like, where the hell has he been, man? But no, he's done in October.
Yeah, Velasquez Brown. Non-title fight, I think, is huge if they can get it on that. They might also put it on 199, depending. 198 is Stipe versus Verdum. And so I think everyone thinks that the UFC will be irritated enough with Velasquez and not give him an immediate title match.
They shouldn't.
So
it's my fault.
I love my card. Lawler McGregor 170.
I don't even want to see that.
Aldo versus Edgar at 145. Cruz favorite 135. Could you imagine all 4 of those fights being on one card?
So you think that's what's going to happen? Because you said it's more what you think is going to happen. Is it what you think or what you want?
That's what I want.
Yeah.
What I think is going to happen is Lawler McGregor, RDA Khabib, and then whatever else, Velasquez Brown, Paige Van Zandt versus somebody, and then maybe Lineker versus Cody, and things like that. But because obviously
Roy McDonald, Stephen Thompson would be dope.
Yes, I think that also, and because Roy McDonald represents Canada, I think that's a really a big potential fight that they could put at 200.
Who else is big that they have from Canada?
OSP, but
he's
big
not
from Canada,
big,
but he's
though.
not a seller.
Is he?
GSP, if they could get GSP back at 200,
Be awesome.
I don't think it's going to happen. Oh, the other thing people were talking about, Front Row Brian on Twitter, was mentioning Chell's suspension will probably be up by then, and he could fight Anderson Silva at 200. Well, he didn't say at 200, but he said that Chell could potentially be another opponent for Anderson Silva.
Everything that he said on You're Welcome, and he's been asked directly if he would fight 200, he said no.
I didn't know that.
He's pretty much said no.
That makes sense.
He's done.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think he's done.
Which would be all. I would tune into. I would see.
I think he knows he can't compete without TRT.
Yeah, I think if you asked him directly, he'd be like, "Listen, it's a young man's sport right now. I can't do." Like, I think he would say that.
So, with that, we're reaching about the end of the podcast. Right at an hour.
Say bye to Justin for 2 weeks.
I will be traveling Europe. It's too bad I'm not going to Ireland now because I'd go visit SBG and Niall and Fred and all those guys that we're now friends with in Cork and different parts of Ireland.
Yeah,
he's also
I figured
Irish.
from his thumbnail that he was, which I love that.
The gorilla wearing the Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I will be gone for 2 weeks. Technically, we're going to be recording next week after the 196 card. Immediately after, we'll get that posted. And then what we're going to end up doing is I will be gone. So Karson will be having a guest host after that. And then after that, what will end up happening is we will probably start recording potentially from a different location, depending on how things happen. It might take a little bit longer than that. Please remember to subscribe and like and share and all of these things at One Speed MMA. Thank you again for listening. We appreciate all of you.
Really quick, I just barely looked at Zcast, and we had a guy messaging us, and he goes, "Marcus, tell them about the farts." Guys, MMA is great, but can we talk about farts for a second? Can we ask questions now? We have questions. I think this is a pre-recorded podcast. And he just left.
That's awesome.
I'm sorry, D, for not addressing the farts.
Yanamar's been in here almost the whole time, too, so thank you for being in here
Appreciate
the entire time.
Sorry that we weren't more active on Zcast. We're used to it. Nobody showing up on Zcast.
Next time we'll talk about the farts.
Yeah, next time hear about the farts.
So, and with that, once again, remember to subscribe both on iTunes, Stitcher, whatever else, and then of course we're on YouTube. Like you guys a lot. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Comment and let us know who you think is going to be fighting at UFC 200.
And how wrong Justin is. Bye.
I am not going to be wrong.
Sorry, we're leaving right now. Goodness, thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye. It won't end.